Hello there, welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Galaxy, where humans face the unknown, outsmart the impossible, and turn every test into victory. So sit back and let the story begin.
The drink was cheap and it tasted like burned metal, but Nora Vance paid for a second one anyway. She had just finished 3 weeks of cargo inspection work on a freight hauler that smelled like engine grease and old fish. The contract was done, the credits were in her account, and the trade outpost of Ord Station had exactly one tavern worth sitting in. She was going to sit in it. The place was called the Hollow Pipe. It had low ceilings, dim orange lights, and about 40 aliens packed into a space meant for 20. There were Dracari mercenaries at the back table, loud and already half through a barrel of something thick and dark. There were two Solvera traders near the door, speaking in their quiet, clicking language. There were things Nora could not name sitting in the far corners, which was normal. After 7 years of working in the outer systems, she had stopped trying to name everything she could not immediately identify. Grull was across the table from her. He was Dracari, broad, scaled, with a jaw that could crack steel pipe if he was motivated enough. He was drinking water because he did not trust alien tavern liquor, which Nora found funny coming from a species whose idea of a greeting was a headbutt. "You should eat something," he said. "I ate on the hauler. That was 8 hours ago. You sound like my mother." Grull made a sound that was not quite a word and went back to watching the room. That was the thing about working with the Dracari. They were always watching the room. It was useful most of the time. Nora was not watching the room. She was tired in the clean and honest way that came after good work, and she was letting herself feel it. She wrapped both hands around her drink and looked at nothing in particular. She did not notice the hooded figure at the bar. She did not notice when that figure moved 2 seats closer. She did not see the small glass vial, no bigger than a fingernail, tilted carefully over the rim of her second drink while her eyes were on Grull. She picked up the drink. She finished half of it. The figure at the bar left without ordering anything. Nora noticed that slightly. Someone sitting at a bar without ordering was a little strange. She filed away without thinking much of it and looked back at Grull. "You want to take the connector route or the long way back to the bunk hall?" she asked. "Connector route has 3 dark corners, so we take the long way." "Yes." She finished the drink. It tasted a little sharper at the end, but she put that down to the cheap quality of the batch. Some of the outer station liquor was made in conditions that did not invite close inspection. She knew that better than most. They left the hollow pipe an hour later. The station corridors were cold and narrow, lit by strips of yellow light that hummed faintly. Nora walked with her hands in her jacket pockets and her boots making even sounds on the grated floor. She felt fine, maybe a little more awake than she expected to be. Actually, more than a little. The lights in the corridor seemed brighter than usual. The hum of the ventilation system, which she had long stopped hearing after years on stations, was suddenly very clear. She could count the individual pulses in it. She could hear a conversation happening behind a sealed door to her left, muffled but present, and she caught 3 words clearly: shipment and before dawn. She slowed down for a second. Grull glanced at her. "What?" "Nothing," she said. "Tired." He looked at her for a moment longer than usual. Later, she would remember that look and understand what it meant. But in the corridor that night, she thought nothing of it, and they walked on. The bunk hall was quiet. Nora sat on the edge of her cot and unlaced her boots by feel, not bothering with the light. She could see well enough. The shadows in the room were somehow clear, edged, like she could trace every outline without trying. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe the second drink had been stronger than the first. Maybe she just needed sleep. She lay down and closed her eyes. She was asleep in under a minute. At 3 in the morning, by the station's internal clock, she came awake all at once, completely and instantly, like a switch had been thrown. She sat up in the dark. Her heart was steady. She was not afraid. But every single sense she had was open and running at full speed, and the information coming in was overwhelming. She could smell the metal of the walls. She could smell the specific chemical signature of Grull's scales 4 meters away through a privacy curtain. She could hear his breathing and count the seconds between each exhale. She pressed her hand flat to the cot and felt the vibration of someone walking on the floor above her, 2 levels up, and she knew without thinking that they were heavy and that they had stopped moving. She sat very still in the dark for a long time. Something had changed. She did not know what, but she was absolutely certain, with a calm that surprised her, that she was not dying. Whatever was happening, it was something else entirely. Dr. Yelva had been the station medic on Vorith for 11 years, and she had seen most things. She had treated Drackery with cracked skull plates, Solvari with infected gill slits, and one incident involving a fuel line and a very unlucky trader that she did not like to think about. She considered herself calm and hard to surprise. She revised that opinion the moment she looked at Nora Vance's scan results. Nora sat on the exam table and watched the old physician's face go still. Yelva was Solvari, pale, four-armed, with large dark eyes that usually gave nothing away. Right now, they were giving quite a lot away. She read the results twice. Then she set the scanner down with great care, the way a person sets something down when they're trying not to drop it. "How do you feel?" Yelva asked. "Better than I should, I think," Nora said. "Yes." Yelva pulled a stool close and sat down so their eyes were level. "I want to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm." "I'm calm." "You have gray veil in your blood." Behind Nora, Grull made a sharp sound. Nora did not know what gray veil was, which she said out loud. Yelva folded two of her hands together. "It is a compound, a legal undergalactic council code. It was originally designed as a field weapon, something that could be introduced into food or drink. It breaks down cellular structures from the inside over 30 to 40 hours. It ailed out to every known biological species." She paused. "It was introduced into your drink last night." Nora looked at her hands. She thought about the hooded figure at the bar. She thought about the second drink tasting sharper at the end. "You said lethal to every known species," Nora said slowly. Yelva's eyes moved to the scanner results again. "Yes. In every recorded case, gray veil destroys the subject's cellular integrity within 36 hours. There is no treatment. There is no reversal." Another pause. "In your case, it is not destroying anything. Your immune system has broken the compound apart and is, I do not have a better word for this, absorbing it, using it." Grull stepped forward from the wall. "What does that mean?" "It means her body treated a biological weapon as a nutrient source," Yelva said. She sounded like someone reading from a document they cannot quite believe. "Human DNA is... I knew Earth biology was stress-adapted. I knew humans came from a high-radiation, high-pathogen environment. But this compound was designed to be universal. It should not have had a weakness." She looked at Nora. "Your biology found one anyway." Nora was quiet for a moment. "What is it doing to me?" Yelva pulled the scan around so Nora could see it. The image showed her nervous system lit up in pale blue, and running through it were threads off something bright gold, the compound, mapped in her tissue. It was not attacking anything. It had woven itself in like thread through cloth. "Your sensory processing has been enhanced significantly," Yelva said. "The compound appears to have bonded with your neural pathways. Smell, hearing, touch, spatial awareness, all elevated. Your reaction latency has dropped by approximately 40%. She turned off the display. "I do not know if the changes are permanent. I do not know if there are effects I cannot yet detect. I can tell you that right now. Your body is healthy. More than healthy." Grull was staring at Nora with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Grull was not easy to read. Drackery faces were not built for it, but she knew him well enough. He was not looking at her the way he looked at something dangerous. He was looking at her the way he looked at something he did not understand at all. "Stop that," she said. "I'm not doing anything. You're staring. You were poisoned and your body ate the poison," he said. "Yamaloed tostar." Yelva stood and moved to her cabinet. "I want to run more tests over the next few hours. Whatever is happening, I want a full record of it." She glanced back at Nora. "Someone tried to kill you. Someone who had Accesto Gray Veil, which is not a common street compound. That means resources, organization." "I know," Nora said. "You should be frightened." "I know that too." She was not frightened. That was the strange part. She could feel everything in the room with absolute clarity. The hum of the medical equipment, the slight vibration from the corridor outside, Grohl's slow and, now very tense, breathing. She could smell the antiseptic on the cabinet handle and the faint machine oil scent on Yelva's second set off hands. All of this information was coming in clean and fast, and she was processing it without effort. It did not feel like an attack on her senses. It felt like something had simply been turned on that had always been there, waiting. She thought about the figure in the bar. She thought about the fact that whoever sent that person had expected her to be dead by now. They were going to find out they were wrong very soon. The question, the one she did not say out loud yet, was what they would do when they found out. She had a feeling she already knew the answer. When Grohl walked her back to the bunk hall an hour later, he was very quiet. At the door, he stopped. "Nora." "Yes." "Your eyes," he said. "The color is different from yesterday." She had not looked in a mirror yet. She looked at him instead, and at the way the dim corridor light caught the flat surface of his scales, and at 3 small stress fractures in the ceiling panel above his head that she had not noticed before and could now see as clearly as writing on a page. "I know," she said. "Get some sleep, Grohl. I think tomorrow is going to be complicated." She heard them before she saw them. Nora was walking back from the station's water reclaim point, alone, cutting through the maintenance corridor that ran under the lower docking ring. It was a narrow route, pipes overhead, conduit boxes bolted to the walls every few meters, grated floor that clanged faintly underfoot. She used it because it was direct. She was already regretting that choice. She heard 3 heartbeats, not her own. She had not known she could do that until right now. And the fact that she could do it and that it alarmed her told her everything she needed to know. She did not stop walking. She did not change her pace. She kept her hands loose at her sides and counted steps. The hooded figure from the bar came around the far corner. He had pushed his hood back now. He had a long face, gray-blue skin, eyes that were calm and professional, and a short blade weapon on each hip. Behind him, slightly spread, one left, one right, using the corridor width well, were 2 larger figures in syndicate enforcement gear. Black plating, visors down. They were Korin, a species that ran heavy and fast, built like something that had decided gravity was optional. Nora stopped. The hooded figure said, "The compound should have killed you. It had other ideas," she said. "It doesn't matter. The outcome is the same." He moved first, which she expected, and she went right, which he did not. She dropped her shoulder and used the conduit box as a step, pushing herself sideways and up, letting his leading hand cut air, and came down on his outside with her elbow across his forearm. The joint bent the wrong way. He pulled back without making a sound. Professional, she noted, and gave ground. The left enforcer moved in. The corridor was the key. It was too narrow for both of them to press a taunts without getting in each other's way, and she was smaller than all 3 of them, which in this space was an advantage, not a weakness. She could hear the exact moment each of them shifted weight before the shift became a step. The compound had given her something like a map, not sight but feeling, pressure, intent, translated through sound and vibration into information. The left enforcer swung wide, and she ducked under it and put her knee into the back of his leg at the joint, and he went down on one side. Not out. She did not have the mass to put a Korin fully down with one hit, but down was enough for a second. The right enforcer grabbed her jacket collar and lifted. That was a problem. She was off the ground for about 2 seconds. She used them. She got her boots flat against the pipe bundle on the wall and pushed, and the angle was wrong enough for him that he lost his grip, and she landed on her feet and moved immediately because standing still was not a plan. The hooded figure, Sorn, she had decided to call him Sorn in her head, had recovered. He had drawn one of the short blades. He was not rushing, he was watching her, recalculating. She watched him back. He moved to strike, and she felt a breath before it came. The micro shift in his stance, the change in his breathing. She turned into the blade instead of away from it, and it went across her left side, shallow but sharp, and she felt the burn of it. She caught his wrist with both hands and put all of her weight into a downward turn, and the blade hit the grated floor with a metal ring and skittered under the pipes. Soren looked at her face. She was looking at him very calmly. "I can hear your heartbeat," she said quietly. It spikes about a half second before you commit to a strike. I already know where the next one is coming from. Something shifted in his expression for the first time. Not fear, but something close to it. The particular discomfort of a very skilled person who realizes the rules have changed. A heavy sound came from behind her. The left enforcer was getting back up. The right one had moved to block the exit. Then Grull came around the far corner at speed. Grull was not subtle. Grull had never been subtle. He hit the right enforcer with the full weight of a Drackery moving fast in a narrow corridor, and the enforcer went into the wall, and the wall lost. The corridor filled with the sound of plating cracking against pipe fitting. The left enforcer looked between Nora and Grull and made a decision that he grabbed the right enforcer by the arm, and they moved. Soren looked at his odds. He was already gone before Grull reached him, slipping back around the far corner with the quick, even steps of someone who knew every exit on the station. He did not run. He just left. Nora pressed her hand to her left side. The cut was bleeding, but not badly. She had bled worse from cargo bay accidents. Grull looked at her hand. How bad? Fine. It's fine. He looked at the empty corridor where Soren had been. He will come back, or he'll send more. Nora straightened up. Her side hurt, and her jacket was ruined, and she was thinking hard about the organized, well-funded nature of what had just happened to her. Grey Veil was not cheap. Corn enforcers were not cheap. Someone had spent serious money on the specific goal of ending her. She wanted to know why. She pulled out her communicator to call Yelva and found a message already waiting. Received 40 seconds ago, while she was in the fight, unknown sender. A data file attached, and 2 words in plain text beneath the file name. They know. Nora stared at it. Then she looked at Grull. We need a ship, she said. The relay station had no name on any official chart. It existed as a set-off, coordinates passed between people who needed to exist off the grid fora, which covered a surprising range of occupations. It was built into the dead interior of a burned-out asteroid, accessible through one docking port barely wide enough for a small freighter, and it smelled like hot circuits and old takeout containers. The person who met them at the port was young. That was the first thing Nora noticed. He was human, early 20s, with the kind of face that had not yet learned how to look unbothered. He had short brown hair and ink stains on his right hand, and he was watching Grull with the careful stillness of someone who had decided not to back up, but very much wanted to. You're Nora Vance, he said, and you sent me 2 words in a data file, she said. That's a short introduction. Davin, he said. My name is Davin. I worked courier routes for the Harris Syndicate for 2 years. Data transfer, mostly picking up encrypted packages and moving them between stations without asking what was in them. He paused. 4 months ago, I was handed the wrong package by mistake. Same pickup point, same handoff code, different file. Hell looked at her. I read it before I realized what it was. I copied it before I handed it over. I have been hiding in moving locations ever since. He brought them inside. The relay station's main room was small, covered in data screens and tangled cable runs. Davin pulled up a terminal and opened the copied file, and for the next 40 minutes he talked. Nora listened. The Harris Syndicate had been running a quiet research operation for 3 years, a project operating beneath 3 shell companies and 4 layers of financial cover. The project's subject was Grey Veil. Specifically, the project was looking at edge cases, individuals who had received low doses of Grey Veil in black market exposure tests and had not died within a standard window. There had been 11 such subjects across 4 species. 9 of them died within the extended window. 1 Drackery subject survived the compound, but showed no biological changes. The compound had simply not bonded. That result was marked as a fluke. The remaining subject was human. That subject had survived and shown significant neurological changes, enhanced sensory processing, accelerated reaction latency, elevated chemical awareness. The Syndicate science team had studied the results in secret and reached a conclusion that they had then locked behind the highest classification level they had. Davin turned the screen toward Nora so she could read the summary herself. It said that Earth's biological history, billions of years of extreme radiation, aggressive pathogen load, unpredictable climate, and high-pressure predator competition, had produced an organism that was fundamentally different from most spacefaring species in one key way. Human immune systems were not just defensive. They were adaptive in a way that had no real parallel. They could take in foreign compounds and restructure their function around them rather than simply attacking or being destroyed by them. Gray Veil in a human host did not kill. It improved. The report concluded that a human who survived Gray Veil exposure would be effectively immune to most known chemical and biological weapons, and would gain sensory and processing advantages that no current technology could replicate or neutralize. It also noted that if this information became public, the Galactic Council would be forced to completely reconsider its classification of humanity as a Category 2 developing species with limited military and territorial rights. The Syndicate had decided this could not become public. A kill order had been issued for every human subject who had ever received Gray Veil exposure and not been confirmed dead. There were 3 names on that list. One had died of the compound on a delayed timeline. One was currently missing, location unknown. Nora's name was third. She sat with that for a moment. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the relay equipment. Grull had not moved from where he stood near the door. He had not said a word in 30 minutes. "They are not afraid of me," Nora said finally. "They are afraid of what I prove." "Yes," Davin said. "If one human survives Gray Veil and changes, and that gets documented, then every assumption the Council has made about human biological limits gets questioned. Every treaty that used those assumptions as a foundation gets reopened. The Syndicate has a lot of business that depends on humans staying in Category 2. Grull spoke from the doorway. His voice was very flat and very quiet. "They poison her to keep humans small." "Essentially," Davin said. Grull looked at Nora. Nora looked at the report on the screen. She thought about 7 years off working outer system contracts because inter-system work required a Category 1 permit that humans were not eligible for. She thought about the freight hauler that smelled like old fish and the inspections and the cheap drinks in the cheap tavern and the figure that had stood at the bar and put death in her glass as casually as a tip. She thought about the second human on the list, the one who was missing, still out there somewhere. Maybe changed, maybe scared. Maybe not knowing what had happened to them or why they were being hunted. She thought about a lot of things in that short silence. Then she said, "How much of this data did you copy?" Davin blinked. "All of it. Every file in the package. Lab reports, financial records, the kill order, the Syndicate authorization signatures." "Good," she said, "because we're going to need all of it." Outside, through 2 layers of rock and metal, a Syndicate warship dropped out of FTL and began its approach to the asteroid field. The relay station's proximity alarm went off in 3 short pulses. Davin went white. They tracked the signal. "I knew the message was Erisk. I thought I had enough cover." "To how long?" Nora asked. He looked at the screen. 20 minutes. Maybe less. Nora stood up. "Then we have exactly enough time," she said. Davin had already pulled up the docking port controls and was halfway through the startup sequence for their freighter when Nora put her hand flat on the terminal and stopped him. He looked at her. "What are you doing?" "Sit down," she said. "There's a warship." "Sit down, Davin." He sat. He looked like he was considering being sick. Grull had already moved to the door and back, scanning the corridor on instinct. He said nothing. He had learned in the last 18 hours that when Nora went quiet and focused like this, the right move was to wait. She pulled the data file up on the terminal. All of it, the full package Davin had copied. Lab reports with authorization signatures. Financial records mapping payments to 3 shell companies. The kill order with the Syndicate commander's clearance code at the bottom. Photographs of Gray Veil compound synthesis equipment in a facility that had a Syndicate registration tag visible in one corner of the frame. She looked at the transmission panel beside the terminal. Vora Station's communications relay was 2 systems back. The Galactic Council's open frequency monitoring post was 6 systems out. But the relay station they were sitting in had a long-range broadcast antenna built for exactly the kind of communications that did not want to Gothruff official channels, which meant it could reach a long way in Avery's short time. How many independent science organizations are in broadcast range from this antenna? She asked Davin. He stared at her. You cannot be serious. Names, she said. How many? He pulled up the range map with hands that were not entirely steady. For maybe 5 within clean signal range. The Calvin Institute, the Outer Systems Biology Consortium, Trell University's Xenobiology Department, the Council Open Frequency. Yes, that too. Human colonies? 3 within range if we boost the signal. Boost it, she said. Nora. His voice cracked a little on her name. If we send this, the syndicate will know we sent it. They will have 8 soldiers on this station in 15 minutes. We will not get out. We'll get out, she said. How do you know that? She looked at him. Because I'm going to give him a reason not to fire. She started the broadcast sequence herself. It was not complicated. The file was already compiled. The recipients were already entered. It needed 2 confirmations and a signal boost activation. Grull, who had been watching without speaking, crossed the room and put his hand on the boost lever without being asked. She looked at him. He shrugged his big, scaled shoulders. I'm already involved, he said. She sent it. The transmission light went green. Somewhere across 6 systems, 7 organizations, and 3 human colonies, a data package arrived in inboxes and open frequency buffers simultaneously. It would take time for humans to read it, for scientists to verify it, for the council to act. But it was out. It existed. It was in too many places at once to be quietly erased. Move, Nora said. They moved. The run to the docking port took 4 minutes. The boarding team was already on approach. She could hear them through the asteroid's outer hull, a faint percussion of mag boots on rock, moving in a tight spread. 8 of them. She could count the rhythms without trying. She told Grull the positions. He adjusted their route twice, without questioning how she knew. Davin was fast in tight spaces, which turned out to matter. The relay station's interior was a maze of low passages and cable runs, and he knew all of it by heart. A year of hiding had made him very familiar with every corner. He took the lead through the last section and got them towed docking port 30 seconds before the first boarding team member reached the inner corridor. They got onto the freighter. Grull sealed the port. Davin hit thundocking release. The ship shuddered and pulled free of the asteroid, and outside the viewport the black of open space opened up around them. And then the warship was there. It was not large by military standards, but it was very large by the standards of a small freighter sitting 300 meters off its bow. Its forward weapons array was live. She could not see it, but she felt the vibration of charged systems through the hull somehow, a sensation that should not have been possible and was anyway. The warship's comm channel opened. A voice, female, measured, and not particularly emotional. Unregistered freighter. You are in violation of interdiction order. Cut engines and prepare to be boarded. Nora sat down in the co-pilot seat and opened the return channel. Captain, she said, my name is Nora Vance. I am the subject of a Harith Syndicate kill order, a copy of which your commanding leadership signed in, which was transmitted to the Galactic Council Open Frequency, 4 independent science bodies, and 3 human colonial governments approximately 7 minutes ago. She kept her voice even. Destroying this ship will not reverse that transmission. It will confirm every detail in the file and add a second crime to the record. She paused. I don't think your career survives that. I don't think the Syndicate wants ID either. Silence. The weapons array stayed charged. The freighter's engines hummed. Davin was absolutely motionless. Grull had his hand on the emergency thrust control and his eyes on the viewport. 40 seconds passed. They felt much longer. The weapons array powered down. The warship's comm opened again. The captain's voice was the same, flat professional tone. This is not over. No, Nora agreed. But it's out of your hands now. She closed the channel. Davin let out a breath that sounded like a small structural collapse. Grull engaged the engines, and the freighter moved. The warship did not follow. None of them said anything for the first several minutes. The asteroid field fell away behind them, and the stars opened up ahead, and the tension in the cabin unwound slowly, like a knot working itself loose. Davin broke the silence. How did you know she would stand down? Nora looked out at the stars. I didn't know, she said. I just made the most expensive option available to her very clear. Grull made a sound that in Drackery translated roughly to reluctant admiration. He would never say that out loud. She knew it anyway. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council issued a formal inquiry notice against the Harith Syndicate. The notice cited evidence of illegal biological weapons development, unauthorized testing on sentient subjects, and orchestrated suppression of xenobiological research data. 7 syndicate executives were placed on travel restriction orders. 2 shell companies were frozen. Nora read about it on a public news feed while eating noodles at a counter in a neutral station called Breakpoint, which sat at the junction of 3 minor trade routes and had the advantage of being extremely uninteresting to everyone except the traders who needed it. She had chosen it deliberately. Davin had gone to his sister's place in a human colony 4 systems away. He had sent her one message, a single line that said, "Thank you, I think," and she had sent back, "Stay out of trouble," and that had been that. She hoped he would be fine. She thought he probably would. He was smarter than he gave himself credit for. Grull was at the docking bay doing maintenance checks on the freighter they had borrowed and not yet returned. The owner, a Solvari trader named Hen, had been understanding about the situation in a way that likely involved a generous future payment from Nora's account. The news feed also contained, on the 4th page, a brief mention of axonobiological briefing requested by 3 alien research institutions regarding. She checked the exact wording, undocumented adaptive response mechanisms observed in human biological subjects following exposure to certain synthetic compounds. Her name did not appear. It did not need to. She knew what it referred to. She had received 11 messages from research teams requesting voluntary study participation. She had not answered any of them. Counselor Brent Osei arrived exactly on time, which she had not expected. He was a large man, broad-shouldered, with close-cut gray hair, the particular kind of stillness that came from spending years in rooms where everyone was watching everyone else. He was human, which the council had apparently decided was relevant for this specific meeting. He sat down across from her, did not offer a hand to shake, a small, correct reading of her current mood, and ordered the same thing she was having. "You're harder to find than I expected," he said. "I wasn't hiding. I was eating. 7 systems in 3 weeks. I like moving." She set her chopsticks down. "What do you want, counselor?" He was quiet for a moment, arranging his words. She could hear his heartbeat. It was even unhurried. He was not performing calm. He actually was calm. That was interesting. "The inquiry is going to take 8 months minimum," he said. "At the end of it, the syndicate loses operating licenses in 3 sectors. The kill order cases go to a tribunal. The biological weapons research gets handed to council oversight permanently." He looked at her. "None of that brings back the testing subjects. None of it changes what was done." "I know," she said, "but the data is public now. The science institutions have it. The xenobiology community is going to publish findings within the year." He paused. "There are 4 alien factions that have been pushing for continued restrictions on human territorial rights. In the last 3 weeks, all 4 have gone quiet. Not converted, not apologizing, but quiet, recalculating." Nora looked down at her noodles. "Because of me, because of what you survived, because of what the data shows about human biology." His voice was careful and honest. "You did not ask to be in his position. No, and I'm not here to ask you to be a symbol. You're clearly not interested in being a symbol." "Correct." He put his hands flat on the counter. "I am here because we have a problem, and I think you are better suited to it than anyone else I currently have access to. There are other biological weapons operations out there. Not just syndicate work, smaller operations, unaffiliated researchers, black market compound labs that the council's standard inspection teams miss because they are not equipped to identify what they are looking for." He looked at her steadily. "You can identify things they cannot. You can walk into a space and read it in ways that our current investigators cannot replicate." Nora was quiet. "It will be contracted work," Osei said. "Council authorized, legal, standing in all 42 member systems. Full resource support, protection under inquiry privilege." A brief pause, "And you choose your own hours." She looked at him. "Can I choose my own partner?" He nodded once. She thought about the second name on the kill order list. The missing human. Change, maybe. Alone, possibly. Being hunted, probably. She thought about the other compounds that might be out there. The other people who would drink something in a tavern and not come home. She thought about Grull saying, with great reluctance, that he would not want to be her enemy. She had taken that as the compliment it was. Grull works with me, she said. Full partner status. Same legal standing. Done. She picked up her chopsticks again. And I want a real ship, not a borrowed Sulvari freighter. That could be arranged. She ate. The station hummed around her. 100 small sounds layered over each other, all of them arriving clear and sorted, a constant quiet map of the world within range of her senses. She had stopped trying to toadial it back. It was part of her now. It had been since the night she sat up in the dark in a bunk on Vorth Station and understood that something had changed and that the change was not going to hurt her. When she was done, she set the bowl aside. One more thing, she said. Osei waited. The missing subject. The second human on the syndicate list. Finding that person is my first case. Non negociable. He held her gaze for a moment, then agreed. She stood up, left the credits for both meals on the counter, and walked toward the docking bay. Grull was lying under the freighter's landing strut, with a pressure tool in one hand when she arrived. He did not look up. How was the meeting? We have a new job. He was quiet for a second. Then he put the tool down and slid out from under the strut and looked at her. I assume. Yugo said no. I could have said no 3 weeks ago when you were poisoned in a tavern, he said. I did not say no then either. She looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them said anything sentimental because neither of them did that. Get the ship ready, she said. We leave in the morning. Grull picked up the pressure tool and went back to work, muttering something under his breath in Drackery that translated roughly to, humans are the strangest creatures in the known galaxy, and this continues to be a problem. Nora walked back through the station toward her bunk, listening to the world around her with every sense she had, reading the whole place the way she had always read a cargo manifest, carefully, completely, missing nothing. The poison had been designed to erase her. It had been carefully engineered, expensively deployed, and meant to leave no trace and no evidence and no consequence. Instead, it had shown the galaxy something it had been overlooking for a long time. Not a weapon, not a symbol, not a wonder of biology to be studied in a lab and written up in a journal. Just a human from Earth who had survived, the way humans from Earth tended to do, by absorbing the worst the world could throw at them and becoming something that could take the next hit and the one after that and keep walking. She went to sleep easily that night. She always did.